Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Ukrainian President Zelenskyy lands in Berlin for a German-hosted virtual meeting with Donald Trump and European leaders ahead of US-Russia summit in Alaska. Gaza ceasefire talks in Cairo today on proposed 60-day truce. Netanyahu signals ceasefire talks moving towards full hostage release. An Indian Olympic Association formally approves country's bid to host 2030 Commonwealth Games during its special general meeting. Ahmedabad in spotlight as proposed host city. Our top story, European leaders and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy will hold online talks with US President Donald Trump on Wednesday, hoping to convince him to respect Kiev's interest when he discusses the war with Russia's Vladimir Putin in Alaska on Friday. Ukrainian President arrived in Berlin on Wednesday to join the afternoon video conference with the host, Chancellor Friedrich Merz. Merz has also invited the French, British and other European leaders and the heads of the EU and NATO to take part in the talks. Merz's office said the conference call would discuss further options to exert pressure on Russia and preparation of possible peace negotiations and related issues of territorial claims and security. They are then expected to talk to Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance in a second round of the conference call. The Trump-Putin meeting on Friday is so far planned to go ahead without Zelenskyy. This has fueled fears that Kiev could be forced into painful concessions, including over land. EU leaders have stressed that the right of Ukraine to choose its own destiny should be protected and added that international borders must not be changed by force. Zelenskyy ruled out withdrawing troops from the Donbas region, which Moscow claims. As the presidents of US and Russia are meeting in Alaska on Friday, concerns are emerging over Ukraine being left out, where a possible deal may emerge to end the conflict. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has called this summit a personal victory for Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. Zelenskyy has expressed concern that Russia will put forward hardline demands and that Trump will hammer out a deal that will demand Ukraine cede swathes of territory. But Zelenskyy seems to be standing his ground for now. He also ruled out withdrawing troops from Ukraine's eastern Donbas region as part of a peace deal. The Donbas encompasses the eastern Ukrainian regions of Lugansk and Donetsk, both of which Russia claims as its own and has sought to control since 2022. Zelenskyy also said he had received a signal from US envoy Steve Witkoff that Russia might agree to a ceasefire without elaborating. He said Friday's summit would effectively postpone new US sanctions on Russia, sanctions that Trump had promised to impose if Putin refused to halt this conflict.
З Україною. Також сьогодні була доповідь розвідки і військового командування про те, на що розраховує Путін і до чого реально готується. Зокрема, це і приготування воєнні. Він точно не готується до припинення вогню і війни. Путін налаштований тільки на те, щоб подати зустріч з Америкою як свою особисту перемогу. І далі продовжувати діяти так, як і раніше. Тиснути на Україну так, як і раніше.
And in the first US-Russia summit since 2021, Putin and Trump will meet on Friday at Elmendorf Air Force Base in Anchorage, Alaska. To prepare for the summit, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov held a call with US counterpart Marco Rubio, who told a US radio show earlier that Trump did not regard the meeting as a concession to Russia. The White House, meanwhile, confirmed that the meeting came about after Putin requested for it, though Trump is open to a trilateral meeting with Putin and Zelenskyy later. Now, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the president wanted to size up Putin directly. Along those lines, Trump's administration tempered expectations for major progress towards a ceasefire, calling the summit a listening exercise.
I think this is a listening exercise for the president. Look, only one party that's involved in this war is going to be present. And so this is for the president to go and to get, again, a more firm and better understanding of how we can hopefully bring this war to an end.
Now, Russia branded as insignificant European diplomatic consultations with Ukraine on Wednesday ahead of a planned summit between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska.
We consider the consultations sought by the Europeans to be politically and practically insignificant. The Europeans verbally support the diplomatic efforts of Washington and Moscow to resolve the crisis around Ukraine. But in fact, the European Union is sabotaging them.
Now, Russian forces made their largest single-day advance in Ukraine in over a year, capturing 110 square kilometers, primarily in the Donbas region. The rapid push, the most significant since May 2024, comes just days before a summit between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska on August 15. The advance near Dobropila underscores Moscow's strategy to gain leverage in potential peace talks, which may involve territorial concessions. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy warned that Russia's actions signal new offensives, not peace. European leaders, alarmed by exclusion of Ukraine from the summit, fear pressure on Kiev to cede land. The escalation highlights the ongoing challenge of achieving a lasting ceasefire amid Russia's intensified military efforts. The European Union has escalated its support for Ukraine by approving a €35 billion loan funded by profits from frozen Russian assets as part of a G7 initiative to provide $50 billion in aid. The move is aimed at bolstering Ukraine's war-torn economy, and defense has drawn sharp criticism from Moscow, which labels it economic aggression and theft. Russia has meanwhile warned of legal retaliation, claiming the use of its immobilized $300 billion in assets, mostly held in Europe, is illegal. The Russian Foreign Ministry said on Wednesday that the EU's new tranche of financial aid to Ukraine from the income received from the frozen assets of the Bank of Russia is an escalation of economic aggression. The EU insists the plan is legally sound, with funds to be repaid via interest from the frozen assets. Hungary's objections delayed the process, citing concerns over sanctions stability. This financial strategy underscores Europe's growing role in supporting Ukraine, especially as US aid waivers, but risk further straining EU-Russia relations. Now, summertime is travel time, and while travel patterns are changing around the world, total number of people exploring the planet are going up. Lars Holter is with DW and joins me from Berlin for more. Lars, good to have you. You have looked at fresh numbers. How is tourism going in Germany
Thanks for having me. Well, the good news is tourism is up, albeit slightly. Looking at the first half of the year, so that obviously only covers the time getting into the beginning of summer, and it's leaving out what for many people in Europe is the prime travel time, pretty much July and August. Anyway, looking at those numbers for the first half of the year, we're seeing growth of 0.1% for travel within Germany. Now, that doesn't sound like much, but it actually comes on top of a record year last year. So we're seeing an extremely strong trend over the past few years with a lot of people visiting or traveling within Germany. Now, what's interesting, numbers of international visitors have gone down by 12%, but that is because last year Germany hosted the Football Euro Cup, and that obviously brought in a lot of visitors from all the participating nations. That is obviously a one-time event. Now we see that factor gone, but interestingly enough, it's all being made up by domestic travelers, hence the slight uptick in the bottom line.
Lars, staying in Germany, if domestic travel is up, where do people go?
Well, it's really the same destinations every year, with one big exception. Berlin as the capital, and well, I might be a little biased here, it's one of the most exciting places in Germany. Berlin is actually seeing a bit less tourism this year, but that is also due to the fact that last year saw the Euro Cup with many matches being hosted in Berlin and millions coming specifically here to the city to celebrate this particular tournament. But staying with cities Munich, Hamburg, Hamburg, even Frankfurt are high on the list here, especially for foreign travelers. And then there's those castles and fortresses where in summer you can find tourists from literally the entire world. Those sites will always be popular, and most of them are seeing an uptick this year as well.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Thanks for your time, Lars Holter. Moving on, a U.S. judge has ordered the Trump administration to restore part of $584 million in federal grant funding it suspended for University of California, Los Angeles. Ruling the move violated a prior court injunction protecting University of California grants. The suspension followed pro-Palestinian student protests, which the government claims fostered anti-Semitism. A charged protesters dispute UCLA warned a proposed $1 billion settlement would devastate the university. California governor Gavin Newsom called the offer extortion. The judge's order mandates restoring over a third of frozen funds amid ongoing concerns over free speech, academic freedom and bias in federal investigations. The United States announced sanctions against an armed group aligned with Congo's military, as well as a Congolese mining company and two Hong Kong-based exporters over armed violence and the sale of critical minerals. The measures are the latest taken by the administration of President Donald Trump to try to bring peace to eastern Congo, spurring violence that has killed thousands of people. Qatar is hosting direct talks between Congo and M23, while Washington is hosting talks between Congo and Rwanda. A report by UN's Independent Investigative Mechanism for Myanmar, IIMM, blames Myanmar junta of torturous crimes since they took to power in 2021. The report released on Tuesday has accused Myanmar of systematic torture in its detention centers, including beatings, electric shocks and gang rape. The country has been ravaged by civil war since 2021, where the junta has cracked down brutally on the fighters of ethnic groups and others. More than 30,000 people have been arrested since then, says the report, claiming of serious abuses during interrogations and in detention facilities. The report also mentions of detaining children aged between 2 to 17 years on behalf of their parents, as it drew conclusions based on the testimonies of nearly 600 eyewitnesses. The report also mentions of some cases where executions of captives were carried out by fighters as well, saying war crimes have been committed by both sides during this whole time. The former Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak, jailed since August 2022 for his role in the multi-billion-dollar Malaysian development Berhad scandal, secured a significant legal victory on Wednesday. Malaysia's federal court unanimously dismissed an appeal by the Attorney General allowing Najib to pursue a judicial review to confirm and execute a royal order allegedly issued by former King Al Sultan Abdullah. Najib claims this addendum order, tied to a 2024 pardon that halved his 12-year sentence, entitles him to serve the remainder under house arrest. While the court acknowledged the document's existence, it could not verify its authenticity, referring the case to a lower tribunal for further review on August 18. The decision has sparked controversy, with government authorities denying knowledge of the order despite confirmation from the former king's office, raising questions about transparency and political motives. And South Korean prosecutors raided the headquarters of the former party of jailed ex-president Yunsuko on Wednesday. The raid was conducted to gather evidence in an election meddling case against his wife Kim Kyon-hee, a day after she was arrested on corruption and other charges. Kim is South Korea's only former First Lady to be arrested, joining her husband, ex-president Yoon Suk-yeol. The court issued the warrant for Kim's detention, the special prosecutor appointed in early June said in a brief message. The charges against her range from stock fraud to bribery and illegal influence peddling. Kim is also accused of receiving 2 Chanel bags, together valued at 20 million won, and a diamond necklace from a religious group as a bribe in return for influence favorable to its business interest, though Kim's lawyers have previously denied the accusations. Now, South Korean President Lee Jae-myung will visit Japan on August 23rd to 24 for a summit with Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba. The leaders will focus on enhancing regional peace and strengthening trilateral cooperation with the US, said spokesperson Kang Yoo-jung. Despite Lee's past criticism of Seoul-Tokyo rapprochement, he and Ishiba pledged to deepen ties at their first meeting during June's G7 in Canada. Historical tensions from Japan's 1910 to 1945 colonial rule over Korea continue to challenge relations between the US allies. The summit occurs as both nations address US tariffs under President Donald Trump, with Lee set to meet Trump in the US on August 25th. The talks aim to foster stability in Asia, reinforcing economic and security collaboration amid global uncertainties, including ongoing geopolitical developments, while navigating the complexities of historical and economic ties. All right, we are slipping into a very short break, but still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Iran says direct talks with US possible under favorable conditions. And Mondo Duplantis breaks record for 13th time with 6.2-meter jump in Budapest.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Hello. Johar. It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout हो गया.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Some more stories. The third India-Singapore ministerial roundtable convened in New Delhi today, marking a significant step in accelerating the comprehensive strategic partnership between the two nations. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal and IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnav represented India, while Singapore's delegation included Deputy Prime Minister Gan Kim Yong, Foreign Minister Vivian Balakrishnan and others. Discussions at the roundtable focus on 6 pillars that are digitalization, skill development, sustainability, healthcare, connectivity and advanced manufacturing. The event also featured a productive interaction with the India-Singapore Business Roundtable, emphasizing government-industry synergy. Dr. Jaishankar expressed delight at the commitment to deepen bilateral ties, thanking the Singaporean leaders. A Hamas delegation is in Egyptian capital Cairo to discuss resuming Gaza ceasefire talks today with the goal of reaching a temporary 60-day truce agreement. Egypt, along with Qatar and the United States, has been trying to help Israel and Hamas reach peace. Despite efforts, no breakthrough has happened since a short-term truce earlier this year. The Hamas team, led by Chief Negotiator Khalil al-Hayya, were invited by Egypt to discuss the latest developments in ceasefire talks and prisoner exchanges. Cairo meetings will focus on ending hostilities and releasing prisoners. The discussions include a potential 60-day truce followed by longer negotiations. They also aim to exchange all Israeli captives, both alive and deceased, in one deal. Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has hinted at a shift in ceasefire negotiations, prioritizing a comprehensive deal to release all remaining hostages held by Hamas in one go rather than phased agreements. This comes as Egypt and Qatar prepare a new framework for a lasting ceasefire, including Israeli troop withdrawal, according to Arab officials. Israel's threat to expand its offensive into Gaza's remaining areas, where 2 million residents seek refuge, has drawn global criticism and may aim to pressure Hamas. The group holds 50 hostages from October 7, 2023 attack, with Israel estimating 20 are alive. Egypt continues to push for a 60-day initial ceasefire to free some hostages and boost aid, hoping to pave the way for a permanent truce. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's plan to expand military control over Gaza expected to be launched in October. The military chief of staff has warned it could endanger surviving hostages and prove a death trap for Israeli soldiers. It has also raised fears of further displacement and hardship among the Palestinians in the Gaza City region. Foreign ministers of 24 countries, including Britain, Canada, Australia, France and Japan, said on Tuesday the humanitarian crisis in Gaza had reached unimaginable levels and urged Israel to allow unrestricted aid into the enclave. Israel denies responsibility for hunger in Gaza, accusing Hamas of stealing aid. It says it has taken steps to increase deliveries, including pausing fighting for parts of the day in some areas and announcing protected routes for aid convoys. Now, New Zealand's Prime Minister Christopher Luxon said on Wednesday that Netanyahu had lost the plot as the country weighs up whether to recognize a Palestinian state. Luxon told reporters that the lack of humanitarian assistance, the forceful displacement of people and the annexation of Gaza were utterly appalling, that Netanyahu had gone way too far. Luxon said earlier this week New Zealand was considering whether to recognize a Palestinian state. Close ally Australia on Monday joined Canada, the UK and France in announcing it would do so at a UN conference in September. Israel's coordinator of government activities in the territories, or COGAT, said nearly 320 trucks carrying humanitarian aid entered Gaza on Tuesday via Kerem Shalom and Zikkim crossings. The United Nations and other aid groups collected their shipments inside Gaza for distribution. COGAT also reported that 3 tankers of UN fuel entered the strip to power essential humanitarian systems and that it coordinated the rotation of aid workers in and out of Gaza. Meanwhile, a ceremony was held in Jakarta on Wednesday ahead of the departure of its military to drop aid to Gaza. 2 Hercules aircrafts departed on Wednesday with more than 800 tons of aid material that will be dropped through Jordan's Aju Air Base.
This task force will deliver at least 800 tons of aid and 1,000 packages of instant noodles from Indonesian Defense Ministry. This aid will be distributed through a low-cost, low-altitude method, which is safer than other delivery methods.
Bantuan yang langsung akan didistribusikan secara.
Moving on, Iran's first Vice President Mohammad Reza Arif said on Tuesday that Tehran is open to direct nuclear talks with the US if conditions are fair, but dismissed Washington's demand to halt uranium enrichment as a joke. Talks were suspended after US and Israel strikes on Iranian nuclear sites in June. Arif emphasized Iran's willingness to negotiate with dignity and based on national interest. President Pezeshkian also voiced support for a new dialogue, sparking a backlash from a senior Revolutionary Guards commander who warned against impulsive foreign policy remarks. As Typhoon Portal hit Taiwan's southeast coast on Wednesday, large-scale damage was witnessed on the island nation. Shop fronts were damaged along with disruption in daily routine, while another video caught solar panel being blown away from a rooftop due to the strong winds. School and work were suspended by government across 9 cities and counties, including the southern metropolis of Kaohsiung and Tainan. Though capital Taipei witnessed heavy winds, no significant damage was noticed so far. The typhoon hit the island nation's southwest coast during the day with gusty winds up to 191 kilometers per hour. High waves could be seen rising from the shores as strong winds accompanied by heavy downpour diminished the visibility. The impact also downed power lines at many places as well. Large number of flights were cancelled along with ferry services. More than 5,500 people were evacuated from their homes and brought to safer locations as authorities prepare to assess the impact. Sports updates now. India is once again ready to shine on the global sporting stage. Indian Olympic Association has formally approved the country's bid to host 2030 Commonwealth Games. The decision came during IOA's special general meeting in Delhi on Wednesday, just ahead of August 31st deadline to submit official bids. The host city is yet to be confirmed, but Ahmedabad is emerging as a strong contender. DD India's Narayan Singh reports.
India has taken a major step towards hosting the 2030 Commonwealth Games. Indian Olympic Association has formally approved the country's bid. The decision came at IOA's special journal meeting on Wednesday. It also came just ahead of the August 31 deadline to submit the official bids.
We are all unanimously means supported for the Commonwealth bid, and it is good that people work together. And then if we get, this is the initial stage, we are working on to get the bid for our country, and if it is good for the athletes and for even for the 2036 Olympics also.
Right now the focus is clearly on ensuring that the right bid goes in, and we are very well prepared on this. And how we make the games big and all is all matters of the future.
India last hosted the Commonwealth Games in 2010 in New Delhi. Now the nation is ready to raise the bar even higher. The chances of winning the bid have grown after Canada withdrew from the race.
I think this is very good moment for India and sport fraternity to host international tournaments, a championship. As you know that India is preparing to bid for 2036 Olympic, and it is very normal process that before hosting a games like Olympic, you need to host several international games. So Commonwealth Games is one such game, I believe. In 2030, India is preparing to host that and through a bid.
The host city is not yet confirmed. However, Ahmedabad is being positioned as a strong contender to host the Games. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has a clear vision to make India a global sports hub. Hosting the 2030 Commonwealth Games fits into that grand plan. It will showcase India's capabilities in organizing mega events. The event will also strengthen India's bid for the 2036 Summer Olympics.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has repeatedly emphasized that his goal is to make India a sporting powerhouse in the world. If India secures the right to hold the 2030 Commonwealth Games, then it will be a big achievement in India's sports arena. The way the big nations of the world are just pulling out from hosting the mega events, India is coming forward to host these events. This shows the prowess of the Indian sports, that it is at the forefront of the world. With camera person Uttam, Narayan Singh, DD India, Delhi.
Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India Live, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.